evening, everybody. French. I'm sorry, Hydro. I'm so used to French. Cynthia always has my back. Oh, Potato. You had me cracking up. Absolutely cracking up. I'm sorry, but you did. I can't imagine. Okay. Well, I tried to imagine. Raging helped me out a little bit, but I still can't imagine. Is she still recovering? Raging, our favorite Cajun. French, new word, belittling. It means making fun of people. Um, and we're going to get into that. But first, I wanted to talk about trauma. Usually, people that aren't happy with themselves or have to talk about other people. She's still suffering. I'm so sorry. Uh, well, I know you're waiting on her hand and foot. Most of the time, people who are very unhappy with themselves and have to pick on other people is due to trauma. And usually, trauma begins in childhood. Not always, of course, but trauma isn't just the event itself. Okay, most people think that that's what it is, but it's not. Psychological responses to an event overwhelms a person's ability to cope with that trauma. And that's a very distinct difference. You can be in a car crash, for instance. That's traumatic. But still, your brain has... Remember Arlene said the right brain holds that and it has to process over to the left brain. So that has to process that trauma. And there are different types of traumas. Eighth day, God created the Marines. Potato, did you get that short I sent you? Because that was Ragins. That was all Ragin. All of it. It was her. It was her. She did it. So, what types of trauma? I want to talk about trauma before we get into belittling and picking on people, right? There is usually four types of trauma. Acute trauma, which is a single event, an accident, like I just mentioned, or if you're assaulted along those lanes. There's also chronic trauma, and chronic trauma is a lot different. It is repeated exposure, much like domestic abuse, or taking your wife someplace that is traumatizing her. I'm sorry I had to say it. But abuse, domestic abuse. It could also be recurring trauma if somebody keeps belittling you and calling you all kinds of names for no good reason, only for their pleasure, because they do get pleasure out of it. And we'll definitely talk about why. But then there's complex trauma. Now, complex trauma is way different. It's long-term trauma, and it often begins in childhood. And a lot of it, involves betrayal, attachment wounds. Your parents are getting a divorce. That's traumatic for a little kid. Child abuse. That's very traumatic. Many other things that happen in childhood. and that is complex trauma. But there's also secondary trauma. And the secondary trauma is experienced by those who help trauma survivors, much like therapists, psychiatrists, and first responders. They go through that trauma too. Isn't that weird? Can you imagine going to your psychiatrist and, talking about this dramatic trauma, horrific things that have happened in your life? And of course, your therapist or psychiatrist are taking all of that in. Okay, they can't get rid of it, right? So glad it was great. Good for her, Potato. That's all I can say. Good for her. So, so trauma alters on how the brain processes safety, memory, and emotion, right? It's different. It's very different. The areas inside the brain include the amygdala, fight or flight, right? The hippocampus. Hippocampus does a lot with memory, all that. It's kind of in the midbrain, okay? The hippocampus might shrink and become impaired, and that disrupts that memory. And it's difficult to distinguish a past danger from a present danger. Also, the prefrontal cortex can underfunction. Think about it. Prefrontal cortex is, for logic, your thinking, impulse control, emotional regulation during stressful times. And especially complex trauma and reoccurring trauma can affect your way of thinking, your emotional regulations, right? And sometimes we don't think logically, and that could be a reason why. Okay. So, how do you know you have trauma? Intrusive thoughts or flashbacks? You're hyper-vigilant, right? You're always looking around and making sure everything is safe. Sometimes you have emotional numbness or detachment. You avoid things that remind you of that trauma. You just want to stay away as far away as you can, if you can. You also have guilt, shame, or self-blame. Sometimes you blame yourself for that trauma. And you also have difficulty trusting others. It's a trust issue. If that happened then, maybe it'll happen now, and I just can't trust anybody. You'll also have dissociation. You feel disconnected from reality. Boy, how many people have felt disconnected from reality? Be honest. I think we all have at some point in our life, right? So, a lot of times you respond from trauma with the flight, fight, freeze, or fawn mode. So, fight, of course, you confront and lash out, or, of course, flight, you run away, or you just withdraw in a corner and just hide your head. Freezing, you just shut down and just go numb. You don't know what to do. You're just frozen in place. Now, fawn, which is unusual, but It happens. You want to appease people to gain safety. And that's kind of difficult to do, but it is done. So people with trauma, and I think we can safely say everybody has been through some kind of trauma, right? It doesn't make it any worse. It doesn't make it any less. It just depends on how your brain processes it, right? But you need therapy for it. Mindfulness, yoga, breathe work, you know. You need to regulate your nervous system a lot better. You also need supportive relationships, right? People that you can trust, really, really trust and know, you know, and they can help you through that trauma. But you really need therapy. There's just absolutely no doubt. So let's go to belittling, because belittling has a lot to do with people that have suffered some kind of trauma in their life, right? Um, they don't really feel good about themselves. Okay. They don't like themselves. They also look in the mirror and feel smaller and inadequate, right? People often feel powerless and they need to compensate for that sense of powerlessness um, by making other people feel small. And it's a mistake by them, and they mistakenly do that for strength or confidence. And that's why they do it. I'm bigger than you. I'm tougher than you. I'm more intelligent than you. I'm better than you. I have more than you have. Okay, those types of things. I do more than you. Hey, Tracy, good to see you. I hope you feel... Ooh, I'm not supposed to say that while I'm on live. Sorry, disregard. Love you too. I almost did something I wasn't supposed to do. And I expect a, you know, shock collar from probably Raging someplace, I'm sure. Oh. So, putting people down is just a sign of your own inadequacies. So, how do you deal with a person like that? I mean, how do you deal with somebody that just wants to be bigger, better? Tracy's stalking you? Tracy, you're stalking Potato? Disregarded. I know. Love you too. Please, no shot collar. Are you stalking Potato? Well, he is a fine catch, but he's caught. He's already caught. He's happy. What are we gonna do? Potato. My mother absolutely loves your gifts. I can tell you that. So, you get a sip of coffee. So, people that usually put other people down talk about them. Hey, Cher Bear, good to see you. Are you here to put Ragin in Ragin's place? Or just tag team? I'm not quite sure. It's good to have you. So, why do people put other people down? Well, they're just not happy with themselves. They're insecure and they have low self-esteem. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Um, They feel inferior. They feel like they have to elevate their own self-worth. And in order to do that, they have to put other people down. It's a defense mechanism, right? Um, they also do it for control or dominance. I'm better than you. Ha ha. I gotcha. You know, it's silly stuff. Silly stuff. Insults, criticism, all of that stuff. They just want to assert their power and superiority, and it's a narcissistic or controlling trait. Plain simple. Now, if you think I'm talking about you, it's you. I'm only going to say that once. I don't do that type of stuff anyways. I would not. Potato. That's funny. Now, after this live stream, I'm going to upload the videos on these things. But I like to do it on a live to try to explain it a little better. AI is great, but I like to explain it too. It's also a way of maintaining psychological control. Manipulators do this constantly. Narcissists do this constantly. They do it constantly. And it is only because they don't feel good about themselves. And it's just plain, it's that simple. It's that simple. Isn't it amazing? It's simple. However, this is what they look like inside. Distressed. I'm not good enough. What can I'm just not better than anybody else. I have to be better. It's me. It's me. No. It is you. And that's why you tend to put people down and belittle them in any way that will hurt that person. You see, manipulators and narcissists, they find out what will hurt you most, or what they think will hurt you most. And that's what they go after. You're fat. You live in a trailer park. You don't have enough money. You'll never be married. You have no children. You'll be barren the rest of your life. Nobody loves you, right? Those kind of tactics. And it's just ridiculous. It's just a projection for them. Okay. They are projecting outwards what they feel inside. And that's all it is. A projection. It's like, this is what they're like. This is their life. They're miserable with it. So they have to lash out, call people names, target what they care about, right? They usually attribute their own negative feelings or flaws to another person. Like I said, oh, your house looks like shit. You don't even live in a house. I don't know. Give me some ideas in the chat of what you think. A lot of times they are envious. A lot of people that put people down are envious of what they feel that person has, or what they what they want, what the other person has. So the only way to make them feel better is to get on that. They use knowledge as ammunition, absolutely. They absolutely do. You know, if you talk about what you care about here on YouTube, people pick that up. And they'll use it against you. Plain and simple. If they're a narcissist, manipulator, or trauma. Most of it stems from trauma. Trauma will make you feel inadequate. Are people born narcissists? I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't have a degree, but I don't believe that. Oh, that's why you don't allow people to get too close, Tracy? Yeah. Yeah. And that's another sign of trauma, right? Because you don't want to be hurt. You don't want people to pick up on what you really care about and use it against you, right? But a lot of it is also envy. People see you being successful or intelligent or having money or material items, and they want it. And they think they deserve it, right? So they want to tear you down because they consider you a threat. Plain and simple. So if someone talks about you in negative ways, they consider you a threat. Plain and simple. They can say otherwise, but they consider you a threat. Hey, Dave, how are you? Oh, you're okay. We discussed trauma, and now we're into belittling people and why they're there. Yeah, I kind of figured that about you, Tracy. Yeah. And we could talk about it. Not here, offline if you want to. That's okay. Envy is subconscious. Okay? People don't even know that they're envious of you. But their actions gives it away every time. And it's a learned behavior. It's conditioned. You know, they think, if I can't be as good, I'll make them seem worse than me. Right? It's always a them problem, not a me problem. It's just the way the brain is. The brain is taught to protect itself. And it does it in some very amazing ways and some very horrible ways. Okay? Depending on the person. Depending on the trauma. Depending on the insecurities, the doubts. That's all it is. Insecurity and doubt. You know, so if somebody grows up in an environment where there's always criticism, sarcasm, humiliation, and that's just the normal thing, that's how that person's going to turn out. Because it's a learned behavior. That's all they've been around. That's all they've ever learned. Oh, let's get this sloppy woman off of there. Go back to the man-child. You know. So, it also involves the environment you're in. And people are conditioned in their schools, their home life, to become this way. And that's a form of trauma. as well. When you grow up in an environment where all of this hostility is, that's a form of trauma. And that's why it's important to understand trauma and why people act the way they do. Um, they also use like insults as emotional armor, right? Which is an important thing. It prevents closeness or exposure. They don't want to be exposed. If you, say for instance, catch somebody in a lie, an obvious lie, they will lash out because they don't want the exposure. Instead of just owning up to the lie or a wrong that they've done, they will just attack as a defensive mechanism. They just don't want to be hurt or judged. Plain and simple. Yeah, French. Or hydro. I'm so sorry. Bullying 101. But it's important to find out why people bully, right? Cup of coffee. Sip of coffee. Coming up. I mean, if you have a mother that's constantly putting you down, for instance, this is just an example, put you down while you're growing up, you're going to feel insecure. And you grow up not wanting to be hurt. So the bullied becomes the bullier. Okay? So, some common signs. Okay? Constant sarcasm or jokes at others' expense. Dismissing others' achievements. You didn't do that. You never did that. Or, yeah, well, you got lucky. Okay? Publicly embarrassing others to seem witty or dominant. Turning compliments into criticism. That's a tricky one, isn't it? That's a very tricky one. Competing in conversations. There's always got to be that competition, right? Yeah. I'm going to win no matter what. I'm going to win. I'm better than you. I always will be. But that person is looking in the mirror and seeing a child. And he doesn't like. Or her. Him or her. Doesn't matter. Excuse me. They don't like what they see in the mirror. It also has deeper emotional roots as well. Fear of rejection or abandonment. Perhaps sometime in their life they've been, when you're in school, you have your first crush and they reject you. Okay, that puts a toll on you, right? You're crushed. Your first love, you're just crushed. When we get older, we can laugh about it, but at the time, the child is just like crushed, right? But sometimes that will linger into adulthood. Of course, as we discussed, unresolved childhood shame or neglect. A lot of our youth these days, our children are neglected. I blame it a lot on social media. Parenting is much different today than it was when I was a child. Much, much different. A lot of manipulators and narcissists believe that worth comes from being better than anybody else. Not from an inner value, but from what they have, right? I have 10 cars and you have a beat up jalopy or no car, right? So, well, let's put it all together, shall we? Putting down people is rarely about the target. Okay, it's not about the target. It's about the insecurity, the insecure mind trying to protect itself. The brain is trying to protect itself from hurt. Plain and simple. Because the person feels powerless inside. And they have to compensate for that feeling by making other people feel small. And they mistake that for strength or confidence. You know, just give people a compliment. If you don't like what somebody says about you, that is a them problem. We don't always have to respond to it. There's no need for it. But manipulators, narcissists are not happy with themselves. So if you meet someone that is talking about another person in a very negative, nasty way, calling them names, shaming them for whatever reason on the planet they can come up with, it's a them problem. It's not a you problem. I'm going to continue this on another live stream about the people that follow these types of people and why they follow them, which will be very interesting. But trust and believe, it usually crops up from childhood trauma and the environment that they grew up in, whether it was in school, at home, no matter where, on the playground, someplace. And it's very unfortunate. Is it inexcusable? Somebody asked me a question today, and I think I'll address it here. If someone repeatedly, unless I get a shock collar, if somebody repeatedly says, I'm going to off myself, okay, what does that mean? Why would this person keep saying that? There could be a couple of reasons. They definitely need mental health, and need to see a therapist because that's just not normal behavior. It could be a shout for help. They want help. It could also be an indication of attention or dominance. Because if you say that to somebody, they're going to give you attention, right? He needed or wanted attention, yeah. So there could be quite a few things, and I don't have a degree, but it could be a lot of things. But one thing is for sure, that person needs therapy rapidly. Can you help a narcissist? That's a difficult question. But we'll talk about narcissism, of course, in another video. But I wanted to make this short And I think we've gone to the half-hour point. Does anybody... Oh, I hate asking this. But does anybody have any questions? Or you can put your questions in the comments below. I'm going to upload a couple of videos on this. I already have some in the queue ready to just push public on. But trust and believe, if someone belittles you, puts you down, uses these tactics against you, it's not you. It's them. It's a them problem, not you. They just want to make you feel bad any way they can. So, like Tracy, share limited information until you know that person very well. And that's hard because even if you know the person very well, they can turn on you, right? Well, you think you know that person very well. But my half hour is up. I'll upload the videos. I hope everybody has a good evening. Stay well. Stay happy. And don't worry about people putting you down. It's them. Good night.